Hello and welcome to Learning with Lovo. Today I will be discussing air-to-air refueling, or AAR. As fuel is life to aircraft, AAR is a quintessential part of modern Air Force operations. It allows you to be much more flexible in how you operate. Need to take more ordnance than your max takeoff weight? Just take off with less fuel and tank in the air. Don't have enough range to make it to the AO and back again? Just tank on the way back. On cap with weapons remaining but low fuel? Just tank and get back in the fight. With this said, AAR requires very precise control of your aircraft, as well as other challenges that make it one of the harder tasks in DCS. We have all been there, bouncing around behind a tanker, failing attempt after attempt, not really understanding what we are doing wrong. I will go over the basics of AAR and then into the specifics with some tips for beginners, and then demonstrate a successful contact in the modules I have available to me. Please note, while I like to keep what I describe as close to the real-life procedures as I can, the way tankers operate in DCS differs in too many ways to stay close to real-life procedures. If you want to read more about how NATO aircraft perform AAR, I recommend checking out the NATO standardization document on the subject by searching ATP56. Let me know in the comments what you thought, if I've missed anything, or if you have an idea for a video you'd like to see in the future. The basics. There are 8 steps to an AAR: find the tanker, communicate with the tanker, rendezvous with the tanker, get permission for contact, make contact, maintain contact, disconnect, and leave formation. But first, you need to know which tankers your aircraft can use, so you don't transit to a tanker that you can't even make contact with. There are 2 tanker types in DCS, and not all aircraft can refuel on all the tankers. There is probe and drogue, and boom receptacle tankers. Probe and drogue tankers have flexible hoses that extend out of their wing pods with a shuttlecock-shaped drogue at the end. This provides drag on the refueling hose to hold it steady in the airflow, as well as provides a target for you to fly your probe into. The majority of aircraft in DCS use this method. Boom and receptacle tankers have a single telescoping boom on the bottom rear of the fuselage and a light array on the bottom front known as the pilot director lights, or PDL. The boom features 2 small wings that allow it to be flown into the receptacle port on your jet by the tanker. The PDL gives feedback on your position so as to remain in the sweet spot where the boom can reach you. The USAF jets tend to use this type of tanker. The tankers. KC-130. A modified Hercules transport, different to the others in that it has 4 turboprop engines. It has 2 Sergeant Fletcher 48 series refueling pod drogues for use, 1 on each wing. S3B. The S3 is a small twin turbofan engine refueler. It's capable of operating from aircraft carriers, so expect to see it circling the carrier group. It features a single drogue on its left wing. KC-135. This is a large 4-engine tanker that comes in 2 flavors: the single-boomed KC-135 and the 2 Mark 32 drogues on the KC-135 multi-point refueling system, or MPRS. These 2, in my experience, are the most common tankers in the DCS multiplayer servers. Interestingly, the MPRS has a boom but seems incapable of using it. IL-78M. Russia's contribution to the tankers is the IL-78M. The large 4-engine plane is unique with its horizontal stabilizer set high on the tail, and with its 3 drogues. Step 1. Find the tanker. So you know which tankers you can use, now you need to find it. There are a few ways to locate a tanker, and the first step is to look in the briefing info to see the radio frequency, and hopefully TACAN or other radio beacon information. Input the air-to-air TACAN info to get a bearing and often a distance to the tanker in question. You should now be able to begin navigating to the tanker. If this fails and the mission maker has allowed it, you can use the F10 map to find a tanker labeled with a K. Click on it to see its type and plot your way to it. Additionally, you can use the ADF function tuned to the tanker's frequency to get a bearing for as long as it's transmitting. If you have a radar, you can use that to get more detailed information on your rejoin. Without the correct radio frequency, refueling is essentially impossible as you cannot communicate with the tanker. Step 2. Communicate with the tanker. This step can be delayed until after the rendezvous, but doing it early will give you extra information on the tanker's location that can aid in the rendezvous. In the DCS Open Beta version at the time of recording, selecting the tanker in the comm menu and selecting Intent to Refuel will have the tanker communicate its altitude and speed.
Proceed to pre-contact at 15,000 at 240.
This will also give you the second stage of the comm menu for the tanker, which will be needed once we are in formation. Take note of the tanker's speed here, as a heavily laden or otherwise slow aircraft may not be able to refuel if the tanker is going too fast. I'm looking at you, A-10 pilots. Note that DCS organises radio choices by distance, so if there happen to be several tankers with the same call sign, the closer tanker will be at the top of the list. Step 3. Rendezvous with the tanker. You should now know the direction to, altitude of, and possibly distance to the tanker. Fly toward the tanker with vertical separation below to prevent collision, then form up on its left wing, level with the wing route. Ensure you are monitoring the tanker's frequency, as other players or AI using the tanker will be communicating on that freak. Holding on the tanker's left wing is known as observation left, or nowadays just echelon left. Check out my formation flying tutorial for more advice on performing straight or turning rejoins. If you are in a flight, have your wingman positioned in a left echelon. If someone is already in observation left, form up on their left echelon. This is the cue to refuel. The aircraft nearest the tanker's wing is next in line. Don't jump the queue. Organise over comms if there is any confusion or if you are low on fuel. Let's take a second to go over the tanker's orbit patterns. They will either fly a circular orbit or a racetrack pattern. It's highly likely you will encounter a turning tanker at some point. In my opinion, a tanker in the level portion of a racetrack pattern is the easiest to make contact with. However, when the tanker makes its turn, it can be quite difficult to maintain position. A constantly circling tanker is only slightly harder to plug with than a level tanker, as it is consistent. A tanker in a racetrack pattern going into and out of its turn portions can be quite disruptive. Prepare your jet for refueling by ensuring the master arm is off and bringing up the fuel page if you have one. You will want to be able to ensure fuel is flowing and monitor the amount. If it is dark, you will want to turn on your external lights. In real life, you would want to turn off your radar to avoid blasting the tanker with EM radiation. Step 4. Get permission for contact. When there is a refueling position free, on multiplayer announce on comms you are moving to that position and carefully move close to that position by going aft and low. Select Ready Pre-Contact on the comms menu. If no one else is refueling, select the left drogue. If it is a boom tanker, you have only one choice. If there is more than one drogue available, expect to take the left one. You may see a drogue being extended to its refueling position after you select this comm option. That's your drogue. The tanker should respond cleared contact and extend the drogue or boom if it's not already out. Extend your probe or open your receptacle. Should the tanker say return pre-contact, it means you're not quite in position yet. Get closer to the tanker and select ready pre-contact once again. Step 5. Make contact. Here comes the hard bit. I'll go over drogue, then boom procedures, and then some practicalities. Drogue. Once the drogue is fully extended, position yourself in a fixed position behind it and slowly approach. If you need to reposition laterally or vertically, stop closure, reposition, and then close again until contact. A very slow rate of closure is key here. If you close too quickly, the probe will clip straight through the drogue. When you keep it slow enough, the drogue will almost magnetically move to your probe to make contact. When you keep it slow enough and you are within the confines of the basket, the drogue will almost magnetically move to your probe to make contact. If you overshoot the basket too dramatically, the tanker will announce, break away, break away. Carefully move aft and settle the aircraft behind the drogue and attempt another contact. Should you go very far out of place, the tanker will announce, return pre-contact. You should once again carefully reset behind the drogue or where the drogue would be and select ready pre-contact on the comm menu. Maintain your focus on a fixed point on the tanker, such as the tanker pod. Focusing on the drogue will highly likely result in overly large control inputs. Watch the drogue in your peripheral vision. Once you're behind the drogue, take note of which part of your HUD aligns with the pod and maintain that as you approach. You may find it useful to zoom out to aid peripheral vision. If your aircraft has the probe positioned outside of your vision, I recommend attempting contact where you feel is correct, and then taking note of where the fuel hose aligns on your canopy bow. If you don't make contact, take a quick glance at the drogue to see how far off you are. Then retreat, retry, and refine until you make contact, and therefore know where the hose should align on the canopy bow. There are lights on the KC-135 Mark 32 refueling pod. They aren't essential to the refueling process, but the meanings are as follows. Before contact, a steady amber means ready for contact, a steady red means pod inoperative. During contact, all lights out means offload complete or a dry contact. Steady green means fuel transfer. Steady amber means aft limit. Flashing amber, forward limit, draw back. Flashing red means break away. The lights on the KC-130 Sergeant Fletcher 48 series pods mean steady red, do not make contact. Steady amber, pod system ready for contact. Steady green, fuel is flowing. Flashing green, receiver full or pod fuel malfunction. Steady red whilst in contact, disconnect, pod malfunction. The S3's pod has a green and amber light, and they mean amber, the pod is ready for fuel transfer, green, fuel is flowing. There are also lights on the UPAS pod on the IL-78M. There are 4 special modes, one being if all lights flashing means refueling is finished. A yellow light flashing means your rate of closure is greater than 0.4 meters a second. A red light flashing means your rate of separation is greater than 0.4 meters a second. When the hose is being deployed and when you are cleared for contact, the green light will flash alongside a solid red light. During normal light use, the lights represent the distance between the drogue and the pod. Yellow meaning 3 to 13 meters, all the way to red meaning 24 to 26 meters. Boom. Proceed carefully under the tanker and monitor the PDL. The lights on the left strip indicate vertical boom positioning. The right strip indicates longitudinal boom positioning. Your aim should be to center both lights and maintain that position steadily enough for the boom to be flown into the receptacle. You can be perfectly orientated, but if you aren't steady enough, the boom won't fully extend for the connection. A steady red PDL light commands a large movement in the direction indicated, and a flashing light commands a small correction. In both boom and drogue refueling, once contact is made, the tanker will announce contact and then you're taking fuel. Tips: PIO and curves. PIO, or pilot-induced oscillation, is the enemy of such formation flying. This is due to an overcorrection that is then overcorrected for, and so on until the aircraft is wildly oscillating back and forth. If this happens, get distance from the tanker, allow your aircraft to settle and restart your rejoin. To avoid this occurring, make small control inputs that you then slightly counter-correct. This is because applying a control input, for example left stick, won't just move you to the left. It will roll the aircraft, which creates a turn rate. Left alone, this will lead to a continuing turn. If you want to move left in a formation, you can apply left stick, induce a left turn, then apply right stick to bring the wings level. Your heading now differs from the tanker's heading and you will slowly move left. In time with your desired position, you should now apply right stick to roll the aircraft right, turning right until your heading matches that of the tanker, then rolling wings level. Manipulating your roll and pitch axis curves will be an essential trick for beginners to get a feel for AAR. Increasing the roll curves found in adjust controls, axis, roll, tune axis will result in the stick positions close to neutral doing less, allowing you to make very small inputs. The trade-off for this is that the stick positions towards the extreme of your stick's movement will result in larger stick movements. If you were to push the stick to one side, it would feel like very little roll was occurring until a sudden point when a ton of roll happened. Start practicing AAR with a large input curve in your roll and pitch axis, and wean yourself off it as you improve. Additionally, I highly recommend having at least some dead zone, either set in game or in your Windows settings. Having no dead zone would mean the smallest movement of the stick would create a control input. This would mean you would have to hold your arm incredibly still to maintain level flight. A dead zone also prevents you from making roll input when attempting to only make a pitch input. Step 6. Maintaining contact. You've plugged and need to maintain this to get enough fuel. For boom tankers, this is very simple in theory, you just need to maintain position. For drogue tankers, you must continue to fly forward for several meters to induce a curve in the fuel pipe. This slack will give you a cone of movement you can occupy before you reach the limit of the hose and unintentionally disconnect. In addition to the reference point you picked in front of you, pick one on the side of the tanker that aligns with your canopy bow and maintain this too. If the tanker banks, endeavour to match the bank. You can align a horizontal portion of your hood with the wing of the tanker. Constant small throttle corrections will be required. There is no perfect throttle setting. Step 7. Disconnect. You can disconnect at any moment you choose by moving away from the drogue or boom. You can also wait for the full fuel, at which point the tanker will announce transfer complete and disconnect itself. At any of your instruments. Okay, I'm getting a flashing full symbol. There we go. Let's reel it in. I'm going to put that bad boy away. Check. Down. Remain in your current position and avoid dramatic control inputs. Retract your probe or close your receptacle. Announce your intentions to other players in formation and carefully move down and then right to take up an echelon right formation on the tanker, level with a wing route if you are first in formation. Step 8. Leaving. When ready, announce your departure over comms if you're in multiplayer and leave formation with the tanker, ensuring high vertical separation to avoid conflict with low aircraft moving to rejoin on the tanker. Change comms and continue your mission. The procedures for the IL-78M are the same as I've explained for drogue tankers, except the AI comms will be in Russian. That's all I have for air-to-air refueling. Let me know in the comments what you thought, if I've missed anything, or if you have an idea for a video you'd like to see in the future. Thanks for watching. Learning with Lovo. Bring a little more. Stop there, that's a bit wonky, need to go down. Here we are, focusing on the pod. All eyes on the pod. The gas. Hold it off. Setting out that roll. Bit of gas. Hold it off. Settle out. Bit of gas. That looks not too bad. Bit up. There we are. Bring it in. Hold it there. Look at the googly eyes. Hidden arrow on the pod. Getting back. Gas, 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 gas. And then off immediately. There we go. On it. So I need to be left for a start. And the pipe needs to just about come in level with my little fuel box on the top left of the canopy bow where there's a green ready light. So it needs to be close and within that line. And that's a bit fast on the closure. Bounce it out, bounce it out. Push that in, looks decent. Contact. There it is. Jet in a little bit. That'll do. Try and hold this. Anticipate the inevitable turn. I'll do in the racetrack. Not much you can do about that, but if it turns slow enough, I'll go with it. Can we see some lights on it? We can. You can see in the bottom right of the screen right now, my little fuel panel is ticking up, and it's good. Find those lights. Too far forward at the minute, but my altitude's about good. Drop it back, move it out, There we go.
You're taking fuel.
Build those blocks together. That's the right altitude, space.
Ready, pre-contact. Clear contact.
So yeah, that's the right altitude, space. So we'll keep that altitude, and then we find the longitudinal space. And you just got to kind of freeze it in the air for a second once you're there. I drop low and back. It's easy to do. This is easier in VR when you have depth perception, which I do not.
Contact.
I'll try and maintain.
You're taking fuel.
It's got a little bit too far away. Press insert, recycle the field probe. Look at that sight picture, where is it? It's kind of in the top of my forward canopy. I can't remember how much the jet takes up. So there's the altitude. Bring it forward for the longitude. I'm about the wing base now, let's hold that. Right, I think she's leveling out. Let's just reset. Should be a little bit easier now. So about there. About there.
Contact.
There we go.
You're taking fuel.
Getting far away, bit of gas, bit of gas. See all these shapes, want to keep it in the green. Don't look at it, whatever you do, don't look at it. I'm looking at the wings of the tanker in relation to my canopy.
Готов к подходу. Продолжаю контакт.
Good contact. Boom comes out, wherever it comes from, there it is. Whee! That's a bit jumpy. Mind that. A bit fast. Drops to idle, hold it there. Line her up, eyes on the pod. And the gas. That's too fast, but maybe. Yeah, we'll take it. Okay. Missed it. I let myself get too slow straight afterwards to avoid my closure, and it popped right out again. So here we go. Oh, I've lost the basket. There it is. I'm being too dramatic with my throttle adjustments. I'll try and be a bit more gentle. More eyes on the pod. Contact. Toblio Pashlov.
Ready, pre-contact. Cleared contact.
Again, eyes on the pod. Smaller pod, it's a bit harder. Control the speed, take it slow.
Contact.
Taking the slack a little bit.
You're taking fuel.
Not too much, because there's not a lot of room.